Now at the stage in the program where we are basically going to hear from some experts who are going to now probe in at depth. Bill's given us that magnificent overview, and he's covered off most of the major groups. But now we're going to take some selected examples and probe more deeply. And so the first speaker in this session is Dr. Peter Buchanan from Landcare Research. He's the team leader, systematics at Landcare Research here in Auckland. And he doesn't know it, but many of his colleagues refer to him as "Don't Forget the Fungi, Peter."
Because Peter's a very common name, I was reminded recently of my former title from my nieces and nephews of Uncle Peter Fungus. It's a real pleasure and honour to be the second largest kingdom of multicellular life in New Zealand, and to do it in 10 minutes. I'm choosing to do this with the help of slides from Taylor Lockwood, who's a great photographer. Now, sometimes the fungi are the missing F word, but it's really pleasing to me that the fungi are not missed out from the EDS program today. Just looking at the interrelationship of life, that we have three elements of biodiversity, at least representing the multicellular life: the flora, the fauna, and the fungi. And nothing lives on its own. And just as an illustration of that, the soil web here, and you can see the fairly pivotal place of the fungi, linking the plants with the animals in many ways, working on helping the plants with their nutrition, which we'll talk about shortly, helping decompose the dead organic matter, making it available for other organisms. The fungi are really crucial in many aspects of the whole environment. And I'm going to be talking about fungi in terms of, very briefly, diversity, function, beauty, and conservation. So, diversity. Bill's already mentioned Dennis's amazing 3-volume set, The Inventory of New Zealand's Biodiversity. And in his summary of the biodiversity of New Zealand, he's listed there the kingdoms. And fungi actually exist across 3 kingdoms. They have their own kingdom, of course, the fungal kingdom, but they're also present, fungi in the general sense, also in Chromista and Protozoa. So how many fungi do we have? Well, we only have about 7,000 recorded at present, but we expect about 20 to 24,000 if we're anything like other areas of the world. So we've got about 15,000 species yet to record of the fungi of New Zealand, just a small task. It's a really exciting science to be in because of that amazing diversity that New Zealand has and has yet to record. So it's wonderful to be able to work in this area. It's also very accessible for amateurs too. If you really want to discover a new species in your lifetime, just try the fungi. So looking at function, I've just got 3 slides just to give a quick snapshot of the main functional roles of fungi. So firstly, decomposition. We have a range of fungi that are a large number, and Bill's already alluded to it, in the simple mountain beech forest, or the simple beech forest, which has over 1,000 species of fungi in all different functions in that beech forest. So we have ones here like Copra fetu, the basket fungus. We have a range of them which may be living on wood or on dead matter in the soil. Vast numbers of fungi doing what is absolutely essential to break down the dead organic matter, making the nutrients then available for other life. So they're the main agents of decomposition, and what we see here in the photos is actually the reproductive stages of those fungi. So as Bill said, when you're walking in the beech forest, you're walking on top of all of these, and when they fruit, don't they do it rather spectacularly? Looking at another function, plant nutrition. So there's an intimate relationship which has been ever since plants moved from the sea to the land. They linked up with fungi. The fungi were already on the land before the plants. And this natural relationship between fungi and plant roots is the norm. Plants don't live on their own, they live with fungi, with their roots. And some of those fungi produce amazing fruiting structures like these. If you go down below those, you will actually connect to the roots and the so-called mycorrhiza or fungus root that is the main, very, very important part of the nutritional health of most plants. Moving on to parasitism, the third function, main function. So fungi can't make their own food. They have to live on something else. They can live on dead organic matter, they can live with the roots of plants, they can live with algae and form lichens. Or in this case, they can live with living things and maybe kill them, or partly kill them. So there's a number that are parasitic on insects. So here we have the Apheto, which is a very important fungus used by Maori as a source of pigment for tamoko. We have fungi which are on various other insects, including on weta, the cordyceps. These are not threatening these organisms. These are in natural equilibrium. These have developed over millions of years. This is a parasitism. It's not a eradication, of course. We have, in association with parasitism of plants, this fungus, harore, which is a very important food source for Maori in times of less food available, especially in winter. But it's also, as a native fungus, it actually attacked kiwi fruit in the 1980s and caused quite a serious disease of kiwi fruit in the Bay of Plenty. And then we have this, which looks like a spotty leaf, and indeed it is. But that spotty leaf is a spotty leaf of a rare plant, and on that rare plant is a fungus, a rust fungus, that only can live on that plant. It doesn't kill the plant, it lives there. And arguably that fungus is more threatened than the plant that it lives on. Let's turn to beauty. Well, Taylor has an amazing way of photographing beautiful fungi and putting them together in a snapshot like that. So there's no doubt that the fungi of New Zealand are a colourful and intriguing group, and not just macroscopically, but when you get down to the finer detail, it is absolutely amazing. And just some examples again: Copa Apheto, the basket fungus, and these other ones, including the truffle-like fungi that Bill mentioned, the coral fungi, the sort of the typical mushrooms that some of you will call toadstools, but they are all mushrooms with caps and gills and stipes, and amazing, amazing features and colours as well. Okay, how about conservation? We don't hear much about fungal conservation, but are fungi threatened? Absolutely. They're threatened by the same sort of threats that affect other groups of organisms. That's not surprising. They are affected primarily by habitat loss and these other aspects that I've indicated there. And then at the bottom I've mentioned competition. So let's look on the left-hand side. On the left-hand side we have two species that are weed fungi, fungal weeds. These are fungi which have come in from overseas. The first one, the orange paw fungus, very pretty. Lots of people point out this, and it's a favourite of many people, but it's a weed. It came in 1969, first recorded in Auckland. It's now as far south as Haast. These things move, and they take the actual niche of native species. The one below is the common one, the fly agaric with the red with the white spots, and beside it a smaller Chalciporus. Both of those are also weed fungi. They are mycorrhizal fungi. They came in with the introduced exotic trees, and they are mycorrhizal. You could say that's good. It is for those trees. It's not good that they have moved into the native beech forest. In the native beech forest, they are competing with native fungi, with hundreds of native species. How did they get there? What are they doing? We don't know. On the right, there are two threatened species. The top one, known from only 2 locations in New Zealand. The bottom one, not seen since 1972 and only known from 1 location, a wood decay fungus. We're getting people in Waikato looking for that one right now. Looking globally at conservation, there's some figures there. Basically, just over 10,000 animals have been red listed by IUCN. About 10,000 plant species have been listed by IUCN. 3 species of fungi have been listed. There's only about 50,000 species recorded, and there's a global initiative to try to increase the number from 3 to something a bit more respectable. So what about in the New Zealand system? Yes, we've made a start. 62 fungal species in the highest threat category, nationally critical. but 1,100 species, 1,100 in the data deficient category, because we need so much more information to make any sort of assessment of those particular species, even though we've got very few records of them. How about this for a headline? New Zealand's Reserve Bank shows leadership in biodiversity. Well, they did. It's my headline, but they did in the $50 banknote. 1991, this amazing banknote, the only banknote with a mushroom on it in the world. And in 1991, here they have Weri Weri Kokako and the Tuhoi story, great that Jim's here, where the kokako rubs its wattle against the blue mushroom to get the colour on its cheek. It's set in Poriora Forest. In 1999, as an anti-counterfeiting measure, they did a bit of a disservice and they took out a little bit of the mushroom by putting in those ferns. But they're going to make amends because in April next year we will have a new $50 banknote design. I did lobby the Reserve Bank a little bit, and they very graciously have put the fungi almost in the centre. So let's take the leadership from the Reserve Bank, fauna, flora and fungi given a profile that they deserve. And I hope I've given you just some insight into the importance of New Zealand's fungi as a major component of our biodiversity. Thank you.
The new flag design opportunities. I see them very clearly. We're now going to move into a duet on birds, and so the first speaker on birds